Life on Saturn presents nothing. We got nothing. We got nothing. We got nothing. Nope.
And welcome to a new episode of We Got Nothing Red with your host, Ayhan Ozyesil. Hello. And your guest, Barbara. Hi, Barbara.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well.
Great. And I want to let the audience members hit on something. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this again. Believe it or not, folks, we actually recorded a whole entire episode last night. And by the time I had realized that the screen recording option on the iPad did not record the sound from our conversation, it was a bit too late in the evening, so we optioned to do this again in the morning. And, graciously, Barbara accepted, and I couldn't be happier and to do this conversation again, because it was so enlightening the first time around. So I hope everyone here listening gets as much out of it as I did. So, Barbara, why don't you tell our audience members what we're here to talk about today?
So, as you know, Ayhan, I am currently a grad student at SUNY Plattsburgh. I'm going to school for mental health counseling, and we are going to be talking about self-care today.
Ooh.
Because it's so important.
It is. It is indeed. I definitely need to get better at it myself. And indeed, yes, a grad student in mental health counseling, as you mentioned, and so much to come with that. That's absolutely needed, especially now during the pandemic, more than ever. I definitely am in reverence of you for selecting to do such kind of work. That's the kind of work that's near and dear to my heart. I do peer work at NAMI, as you know, myself. So, mental health community, like, that's stuff that we bonded over, like, because it's a community sense. And I love that, we're all community minded and kind of in that whole mental health recovery game. And it's really cool to see that kind of blossoming and people kind of shedding the stigma from it. People like yourself. So I appreciate you doing that. So you were telling me about how you were on this self-care journey for the past year. I mean, I imagine doing your master's and working, that's become ever more present in your life.
Absolutely. I actually, in one of my courses, one of the things that they stress is that if you are going to be a healer, if you are going to be working with people and encouraging them and supporting them to take care of themselves, you have to take care of yourself, and you really have to be able to do the work in order to show other people how to do it. So it kind of started there. I realized how important self-care was as far as what I was putting out into the world, and so I just kind of dove in. I think that for me, it looks different than it might for you, and self-care might look different for somebody else. But at the end of the day, if we take care of ourselves, we're going to be able to hold space better for people and really be there for the people that we need to be there for.
Absolutely. Yes. That's another thing that stuck around from last night's episode, faux pas. But yes, indeed. You couldn't be more correct on that. I mean, that's studies have shown that there's no such thing as the true indomitable will that can withstand all without rest forever. Like, we all need rest. We're human, and we need nurturing, self-nurture. Like, it's like self-care, so paramount. Like you mentioned, I remember last night, the whole analogy of, the cup, you can't pour from an empty cup, and,
Yep.
you can't teach people how to not pour from an empty cup unless your cup is full as well. So it's like, it's such a innately complex, I guess you could say ideal, to really kind of navigate. So why don't you tell us a little more about the making, your own meaning in your self-care, because, it takes different forms for everybody. And I do believe you had some excellent points to shed on that. So please tell us some more.
So, I think that for me, making meaning is really important because I've spent a lot of my life kind of shifting around and accommodating other people and not really being true to myself and like the things I believe are good or valuable to me. And so I think it's really important for everyone to kind of dig deep, especially right now. The world is throwing a lot at us, and we still have the responsibility to care for ourselves. And so for me, I really had to, the last year, dig deep and find what made me feel joy and what made me feel healthy and what made me feel well so that I can be there for everyone. And I think it's really important to ask yourself what you want, not what other people want, not what people want for you, but necessarily just like what you want for yourself. Where do you see yourself going? Where do you need to be right now? Just being able to, develop an idea of what is going to feel good for you and then kind of going for it.
Excellent. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it or thought it any better. That's an excellent way to put it. I think that's a pretty good segue into talking about, like you were talking about the degrees and like how it's a spectrum between making smaller changes and some people who make like larger sweeping changes. So could you elaborate a little bit upon that?
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to know that self-care takes many different forms, and it's important to give yourself enough room to succeed. For me, that comes out in the form of sometimes I will do something small for myself or just drink enough water, and that isn't a big thing. That's not a big change in my life, but it makes a substantial difference. And then, like you said, there are people who may have to make substantial changes. A lot of times you can see that with addiction. If you are struggling with a substance, really stopping cold turkey is actually going to be, it's a whole different ball game. Like you're looking at the difference between drinking water and really healing your body entirely and your soul. So I think that for people, it's just really important to understand that it looks different for everyone, and you can do little steps and you can do big steps, and the big steps, you just have to make sure that you have resources. You have to make sure that you make connections and do the things that are going to keep your cup full while you're taking on those things.
Absolutely. And you're speaking a lot to that whole recovery model, which is so essential in our society. This now, like you said, more than ever, and because a lot of these issues are starting to kind of bubble to the surface right now, and we have the time, and a lot of us, unfortunately, because of what this has caused, the pandemic has caused, sweepingly so, and that was a sweeping change in all our lives that we just weren't expecting, and which was so unique because it was a unified experience, and the trauma from that is so individualized, even though it was a unified experience, which is like something that we've yet to really kind of dive into. I imagine this is going to be a very educational and a very tough time for people in the mental health field, because it's like walking into uncharted territory, and discovering new things, and as you said, self-care is more paramount, more than ever, and the different forms that takes in the recovery model, making those connections in your community. So I think that's an excellent segue into our top 5 segment. I think it would be interesting for you to announce your interesting name for the top 5 topics. And I enjoyed it, so I know the listeners will as well.
So, I laughed about it way longer than I should have because I laugh at my own jokes all the time. So when I said it, I can keep it together for a few minutes. But yeah, I was trying to come up with a clever name for the top 5 areas of self-care and came up with the top 5 self-careas. And so to go off from that, I think that it's important to dive right in. So I will start off with my number 5, which I think kind of trickles down to everything we're going to talk about, and that is being authentic. For me, I have to be true to who I am. I have to be honest about the way I feel about certain things in the world, and I have to share my opinions with the people that I care about because that is really what keeps me going. And I think that when you're true to yourself, you carry less weight around. And that can be in regards to really anything. Be talking politics, things are so heated right now, and I think that we have to be honest with the way that things are going to impact us personally. It could be in regards to sexuality. That's something that a lot of people struggle with. It's something I don't really put a lot of thought into because it's something I've really processed over the years, but it's definitely something that I think is really important, that we just kind of explore who we are and we, pay attention to those things inside of us, because it makes it easier when we interact with other people.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Sometimes it's difficult for many of us who are still kind of finding those answers, and because it's, like you said, it's an ever-growing, ever-going process. So it's, especially now, I'm sure there's so much to juggle, and it's definitely an interesting time to find yourself, and some people are even re-finding themselves in some ways,
Absolutely, and I think you touch on the fact that right now a lot of people are in different situations than they were in before. Some people are unemployed or they're working in a different place. We have more time to think and to ruminate, and I think in being authentic comes forgiveness. We have to make sure that in those moments and those thoughts when we're recognizing who we are, we also forgive ourselves, because that really makes it just makes it easier to be who you are and who you need to be.
Yeah, that's an incredibly powerful statement, and nothing need more to be said about that. That's incredible. I think that's a gem I'll be holding on to. Hopefully the listeners do as well. I guess moving on to your number 4. What would your number 4 be?
So my number 4, I would probably say has to do with my physical well-being, the food I put in my body, getting enough exercise. That's something that we've connected on over our friendship. I think that a lot of people have a hard time hearing from others that they should put better things in their body or do more with their body. And for me, I think part of allowing other people to care for me is listening to those suggestions, because a lot of times they're right. I've had friends tell me to drink more water, and at the end of the day, some days that's all I really needed. And so for me, it's really just being mindful of what I'm doing for myself and inside of myself. Good example for me as far as health goes, I have endometriosis, and so I have to really be careful of what I eat because there's a lot of foods that trigger inflammation in my body. And so I've kind of taken on the idea that perfection isn't always the answer, but I can live with a balance of maybe 90% healthy and 10% I might mess up, but I can always come back. And so for me, I think being healthy physically is really just kind of pushing myself, but having those slip-ups, I kind of forgive myself and I move on, because one candy bar doesn't have to turn into 10. And so I think that, again, paying attention to what I'm putting in my body and how I'm treating my body is a really big part of my self-care.
Great, yeah. Indubitably so. That's another thing I'll probably be taking away from this conversation, that I'll have to tell myself, like, one cheese stick doesn't have to turn into 3 or 4 or something like that.
If it does, though, you got to remember that we're all human, and it doesn't have to be for tomorrow.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah. Excellent. And that whole forgiveness aspect you were talking about, that's so important there. And yeah, absolutely. So, I guess that brings us to your number 3.
My number 3, I would have to say, is setting boundaries. And that might seem a little trivial to people, especially if you are excellent at setting boundaries. I personally am not. I have a hard time saying no when my friends or my family need something from me or they want my time and attention, but I'm currently working 2 part-time jobs and I'm in grad school, and so I have to be able to say no. I keep my schedule pretty well organized. I send pictures of it to all of my friends.
Yes, you do.
And then I open them up to see me, and if I'm not available or I have some homework or something, I just say no. There's a lot of power in that, and it really allows you to kind of maintain your energy level. I think it's vital for me to be able to take care of myself, just to be able to tell people, hey, I can't do that today, maybe next week. And then to be able to go to bed and not feel bad about it. I think that's a huge part of my self-care.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Indeed, I would say that if you're looking at that area of yourself and you're finding that you're having a hard time, because I also have a hard time saying no. Like, it's probably one of my worst qualities. Because you're right, it can erode at you and just chip away everything, and until you have no choice but to say no to everything. And usually when that happens, things are in a very bad place. So, that's another great point. And which makes me all the more grateful for having your time here to explain all this stuff, because it's so important. And so I guess that rounds us out to our number 2. What would that be?
So for me, number 2 is maintaining and fostering healthy connections. So that's with my friends, with my family, and maybe even the people that I work with. As far as my experience in self-care goes, I've benefited the most when I've been myself, like my authentic self, with a group of people who are really accepting of that. And so I have had the opportunity in 2019 and through 2020 to kind of foster some friendships with different people and like-minded people, and it's really allowed me to flourish. When I say flourish, I don't mean I'm perfect, but I know that when I do have bad days, there are people that I can go to, and there are people that I can have my difficult conversations with, and I walk away and I'm no less loved or cared about. And I think that those connections are really important to have.
Absolutely. Incredibly put. Yeah, those are the connections that I guess you could say that really are a good brick in the foundation of who we are and how the community functions. Those are our communities, our smaller communities, for better, I guess, for lack of better term. So I guess that brings us to your number 1, which would be.
So my number 1, as far as self-care stuff goes, for me in the year of 2020 has been being creative. And it really kind of trickles down from all of the things that we just talked about. I've taken care of my body. I've taken care of my friends and my family and those relationships. I've set boundaries so that I have time. And really what ends up happening is that I'm creating these things, these pieces of art. I'm having these conversations with people about my art. I'm inspired and diving more into other people's artistic processes, and that really kind of propelled my self-care a lot.
Excellent. Indeed, I would say I've been inspired by your art, and many people out there have been. I mean, so many wonderful pieces that you've had, especially for Inktober. So many favorites. I'm sure everyone has one they. I've loved all of them thus far, and
Thank you, Ayhan.
So it's. Thank you for sharing that, your talent with the world, and I'm super psyched that I have an original Barbara hanging up in my house. So I'm just saying. What y'all want to know, y'all are talking about, I'm buying Barbara's prints and all that. I'm like, I got her original watercolor, man. What you talking about?
So after my great-grandmother's painting, you were originally the first friend in the group of friends that I made a watercolor for.
No.
You started this tradition. So for everybody's birthdays or important, milestones, I'm thrusting these paintings upon all of my friends. And Ayhan was the first one of my friends, and it was so well received. And it kind of helped build kind of a friendship between us. I was like, hey, here, I made this for you. And it helped with that connection. And then it started this thing for me. So now I make paintings for my friends when important things happen.
Wow, I had no idea that I was the first one. That makes me feel so special. You don't even know right now, Barbara. I'm
gonna have you crying on the camera.
Okay. No. It's okay though if I do. But no.
It's true. Sometimes it's okay for everyone to cry a little.
That's
sometimes.
true. That's true.
But yeah, we talked about last night about our grandparents and how my great grandmother she was an artist and she oil painted. I happen to love watercolors. They're a little bit more dangerous. You can't really paint over them unless you change your mediums. So. Mm-hmm. I love watercolors, and my grandma really kind of pushed me artistically over the years. And the last year that she was here on Earth, her soul, I shared a painting with her that I had felt compelled to bring her something, and so I painted her a picture, and her response really kind of sealed the deal for me. It made me realize that what I have to share artistically brings people joy, and so from that moment, I made a point to use that and to kind of use that outlet to make those connections and kind of foster them.
That's incredibly touching, Barbara. And thank you for sharing that. I'm sure the listeners and the viewers agree. Yeah, you're right. That's so powerful. That moment you're sharing there, and having that motivation and that inspiration that pushes you to greater heights. I mean, it's something that's permanent. That's forever. And that's a spirit that passes on, and it infects everyone you meet. Just so you know, and so that's something that in some way your great grandmother is living forever. And that's. I hope that's you probably feel her every time you do your art. I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't think that I've made any pieces without having some sort of sentimental moment where I'm like, oh, Graham, thank you for instilling this in me and pushing that, and it's a blessing. I'm very lucky that I had this incredible woman in my life for my entire life. She lived to be 106, so I clearly wasn't around for all of it, but the things that I learned and that she shared with me really kind of, they just inspire me on a daily basis. And I think that that's how I've grieved, is by sharing all of those parts of her that I took from her with everybody.
And you know, I'm sure I can speak for everyone when I say that, you know, we're so grateful that you're sharing those parts with us, and it's incredible. You're making political statements. You're coming out swinging in the most wonderful way, and I hope everyone gets a chance to see it. I'm gonna put it up. I'm gonna make sure the links are shareable below in the comments and everything, and you know. Your Instagram at her name was Barbara. You know, you can check her out. Her artwork should be up on there, and so yes. I guess we can at this point move on to my top 5, and I do want to circle back to a little bit more of your personal life and how it connects to your art and everything and your self-care routine. But yeah. Through my self-care's, the self-caria top 5. Self-caria top 5.
Absolutely, Ayhan.
Absolutely, Barbara. Which will be the title of this episode for all the listeners and viewers out there. So, my top 5 self-carias. My number 5 would be common to yours, which is making connections. And fostering those connections and, in the community. I think that's very important to have that in your wellness toolkit. And let's see, number 4 would also be one likened to yours, which is to treat your body good, you know, by getting enough rest and knowing when to set boundaries and say no for your own health. That's incredibly important. And so now then we come down to my top 3, which are a little different. So I put a little emphasis on some other stuff like media, entertainment, whether it be reading, books, manga, comics, watching TV shows, anime, what have you. That's my number 3. Because sometimes I just really need to just unplug and go into another reality, and I think that's something many people can relate to.
You work hard. You're a busy dude, Ayhan. You deserve a break sometime.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We all do, right? Yeah. So, and so then my number 2 would be an extra emphasis, believe it or not, on food. Anyone who knows me knows that I am all about it. I love not just like lots of food or anything like that, so much as I like to try lots of different food. Like we order Hello Fresh in our house. You know, it's a little bit, we've cut out on the takeout because of that, because we used to do a lot of takeout. So we're like, we might as well do this instead. And that way we eat something different every now and then. And
I've seen pictures of your beautiful food, Ayhan. You're eating pretty well over there.
We're doing all right. Yeah. And what I love is that the portions are controlled, and that's the best part. I mean, I think we're just doing like 2 meals a week or something like that, 2 or 3 meals a week, because we can't option for the week one. That's way too much. I mean, it's expensive as is, but yeah, and if it wasn't for all the coupons and stuff, I don't think we could get away with it, honestly. But it's like, hashtag coupon life. But
you're making it work, man. That's all that matters. That's the key to it. Like, you find what is important, and you find ways to make it work. And you definitely, you and your family, I think, have that part of it down.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Barbara. And I think I honestly think from what you told me, you have it very well down yourself. So, I mean, we've had conversations about this before, and I was genuinely impressed by your knowledge and your fortitude in the area, because it's hard. It's a hard thing to balance. It's one of the hardest things to balance because it's one of those things where if we have a distorted relationship with it, well, it's not like we can stop. We have to eat. So.
Yep, and yeah, that's the thing is when I mentioned earlier, like it's one of those things that you have to you can't stop it completely, and so you really have to kind of triage the value of the things you're putting in your body and what they're going to do, and nutrition is such an important thing. I'm glad that that's in the top of your list.
Yeah, well, thank you, and my number one is I like to call it my duality, which is like what you call with your creativity as well. Mine would be more of like, on the area of like stories and like podcasts, stuff like this, and music and all that, and so and then the other side of it for me is working out, and that's the kind of stuff that I would do with like my grandfather. We would do like squats when I was younger, go for little walks and stuff like that, little things that and that's what he instilled in me. It's just like, do what you can when you can. We all have lives, and squeeze in whatever you can because it's good for you. And it was so true. It's been the one constant in my life. So just trying to take care of ourselves in that duality. I like to call it, the balance between our yin and yang, and the creativity, which balances our mind emotionally and our, ourselves and our what our core is. And I think the physical kind of touches upon that as well, but while also, the physical as well. So that would round out my top 5. Now, I want to circle back around to your inspirations. You were talking about your grandmother, and you did stop for a while. You did touch upon a subject last night that again is it's a tough subject to talk about, but I again commend you for being open about it. And if you would elaborate upon the subject, why don't you tell us more about that?
So I am blessed to have this group of creative friends and these people that foster these things in me, but part of recognizing how important that is to me is it comes from being in a relationship for a long time that really it wasn't emotionally healthy and it was psychologically not good for me. And after a few years, I stopped reading, which reading has always been a big thing for me, gaining knowledge, learning of others' experiences. And I stopped reading, I stopped drawing, I stopped painting, I stopped being my authentic self. And I think that right now, more than ever, it's really important to be honest about the ability to get lost in relationships, friendships. Really, today, I think it's very easy for us to get lost or caught up in media. And we kind of let parts of ourselves go that are really important to our well-being. And so for me, I spent the last couple of years kind of rebuilding myself and digging deep and pushing myself. And I think that it's really important for people to know that no matter how far lost you are, you can always come back. There's always, you're always in there. You just have to sometimes dig really deep, and sometimes other people have to come help pull you out. But you have to take that help, and you have to honor the relationships you build in the process, and really just use those experiences to propel yourself forward. And I say that today very easily, but it's not easy every day. That's another important thing, is that self-care, it changes every day. And so as far as my life goes, I don't have a creative outlet daily. Sometimes I'm just keeping up with schoolwork and my job, but I think that no matter where you are and no matter what your circumstances are, there is always an opportunity to come back.
Well, incredibly well said, and thank you again for sharing that. Yes, and know that if you need help listening, that there are many different programs out there locally. That if you look them up, I can put some national databases, of course, online as well for listeners who might be listening to this and might be in a situation like that, and hopefully they can get a little bit of help. And so, thank you again for sharing that. And you did mention that eventually. I guess we can round this out with talking about how we did run into each other in this wonderful group of friends, Life on Saturn, who kind of brought our creativities together, and we have many projects, many irons in the fire, as they say, and someday we're hoping to do a children's book together, and that's been something that's been in the back burner for a long time, but we'll definitely get to it someday. But we have all these projects, and as you said, you have master's program with work and everything. So that's incredible, and thank you again for joining us here, Barbara. Why don't you round this podcast out by telling us about your experience with getting in contact with LOS and thereafter with your Inktober art. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
So yeah, I became friends with pretty much everyone in the Life on Saturn Productions group last year, and it was a friend brought me in and shared his world with me, Karan, and I developed all these beautiful friendships with all these creative people, and so from making music to drawing and painting and sitting down and brainstorming, I've had the opportunity to really see everyone's creative processes and see how different they are, and then I've had the experience of being present while everyone's collaborating artistically, and there is some sort of maturity and growth that comes from sharing artistic feedback, because you are there for the people that you're working with, but you don't always get to say yes, and sometimes other people will see things in your art that you don't see, and you have to be able to still take that feedback and hold space and respect those people in that interaction, because you're really there to be creative together and to foster the things that you see in one another. And so, yeah, I've had this beautiful experience, and I'm lucky to have learned so much and to continue learning. It's been amazing. I say that wholeheartedly. What you guys all do together and what you ladies all do together are really it's just important for me. And to me, navigating my artistic processes and like my artistic self.
Hey, and you know what? I know that you're doing your part in it too. So I mean, you're definitely down with Life on Saturn Productions. I mean, I definitely don't want you to feel like you're out the window looking in kind of thing. Like you're down in the muck with us doing this stuff. So we're I'm sure everyone's grateful to have your friendship like I am, and your incredible talent leading as a great segue to round this out to do a little more talk on your Inktober, which again.
Oh yeah, I got so excited about all you. Sometimes I cry about Life on Saturn, but I'm not going to cry on camera today. I get so inspired. Yeah, I forgot that you mentioned my Inktober drawings, but I do happen to have my sketchbook handy, because I know how much you enjoy that peacock drawing I did.
I do.
First, I want to show off my fancy Amy drawing, though.
Yes, please do.
Can you see this?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, wait. So, you know what? Let me move my glaucous face for the viewers there. There it is. That is, I believe, a uterus punching Coney Parrot in the face.
Yes, yes, it is, Ayhan. Somebody did ask me if it was a tooth. It's not. It's uterus. Teeth don't have fallopian tubes.
Yes, I was going to say, yeah.
If your teeth do have fallopian tubes, you should see a professional.
The creativity, my goodness, to turn the fallopian tubes into fists, like...
The Amy's face. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
oh
so
my gosh.
this one is really personal for me, and I'm angry, and the only way that I can really express it appropriately is by making art about it. As I mentioned earlier, I have endometriosis, and so if I ever decide to have children, I could require medical intervention. I have to use birth control to maintain my body and to kind of keep the disease that I have in check. And so to know that somebody who fights against my reproductive rights could be on the appeals court, I just had a really hard time with that. Like, I just am not comfortable with it. But as a human being, there's only so much I can do. So aside from advocating to legislators and to other government officials, this is really the only outlet I have. So it's what I've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's incredible art, and it makes a powerful statement. So, yeah, thank you. I mean, that's wow. I love your art, and I really do. And I'm sure many others. I mean, I've seen it. Many others do as well. So, you did mention a peacock.
Yes. So I was having a couple of days where I was really struggling to want to make any art, and I had an experience that wasn't per se my personal experience, but it was something that broke my heart a little, and so I really just was trying to find a way to kind of get that out of me, and so I wanted to make something beautiful, and the prompt for the day was fancy, and so I drew this peacock. And it took me a really long time. There's a lot of detail in there.
Look at that peacock, folks.
Found a picture of a peacock and just drew the peacock.
Yeah, and again, you can see all of these at Barbara's Instagram page, which is at her name was Barbara. I'll throw that in the links as well. And again, thank you so much again for doing this, Barbara. I know the listeners and the viewers couldn't be more grateful as well. Your wealth of knowledge in this area is, it's appreciated, and of course your creativity is incredibly appreciated. And
thank you, John.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, and I hope we have a chance to do this again. And I just want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors, Life on Saturn Productions. They're a great group, and you should look them up on YouTube, on Life on Saturn, LOS. I'll throw the page up, y'all will see, and right there, right below, or here, or up, yeah, up. And,
absolutely, Ayhan.
Absolutely, Barbara. So, thank you again, Barbara, and thank you all listeners and viewers for tuning in. I know we all had a great time, but sometimes we have to say goodbye and do a little more self-care. But thanks for listening in, and have a great day, folks. Later.
Hey, I'm Saturn Lunar Nova. Be sure to follow Life on Saturn Productions on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook to see our short films and music videos. Peace.